Hi guys, and Happy New Year. Wishing you all the best for 2024. So my first long video of the year, and of course it has to be a ULEZ update. Yes, that is still an ongoing thing, and frankly this year it's kind of a crunch year, really. It's a make or break year, really, for the whole ULEZ thing. I'm not even joking here. Now think about it, because London Mayor Sadiq Khan, the instigator of the ULEZ expansion in London, which happened at the end of August last year, turning our great capital city into the biggest low emission zone in the world. Well, the mayor, of course, is up for re-election on the 5th of May this year in 2024. It is absolutely crucial, I cannot stress this enough, that he must not get in again, and that instead we vote in one of the candidates that is promising to roll back ULEZ to where it was before the last expansion at the very least. Now, why is this crucial? Because if Sadiq Khan wins an unprecedented third term, that will be a kind of a validation of everything that he's done in London so far. And it will pretty much give him a mandate to press on and continue further with his, anti-car policies. And frankly, it's not looking good, because it does appear that he is well ahead in the polls, so far at least anyway. Plus, as far as motorists and car owners are concerned, the other thing to keep in mind is that, if he is going to get in, and in addition to that, things are going to get even worse, because in addition to the likelihood of him getting in again as mayor, we are almost certain to have a Labour government, and that's probably going to also happen this year. Which of course means that Sadiq will then have the full support of the government to do whatever he pleases in London. Effectively, he'll have carte blanche. That means that ULEZ is not only here to stay, but it could get tougher, i.e. he could easily ramp up the requirements to the forthcoming Euro 7 emission standards, for example, which is pretty much going to make all the current cars non-compliant. And don't forget, pay-per-mile road user charging would probably definitely, almost certainly hit us in 2026. And that would apply to every car, ULEZ compliant or not, even EVs. That would apply to everybody. And we know that he's already been investigating that. And the Labour government would use London as a test bed and then roll out these policies, these anti-car policies, to other major cities, and then eventually just to blanket the whole of UK with this. This is very likely to happen. These are things that the Labour Party, or people in the Labour Party, have already kind of hinted at, and suggested that this might actually happen. Now, all of this is a given if the status quo is to continue. And I gotta plug my novel here, because some of this is actually predicted in the ULEZ Files, which is my debut novel, which is out now, exclusively available on Amazon. I'll put a link below as well. Do check it out. And if you like it, do leave a review on Amazon. But all of this stuff is not really part of this update. The update itself is coming at you right after this. A brown car guy. Right, so a storm is brewing for Mayor Sadiq Khan, as European lorry drivers have taken the bold step of launching a legal challenge against Transport for London TfL and the Euro parking collector. This concerns millions of pounds in fines from the cities, of course, London's ultra-low emission zone and the low emission zone, the ULEZ, which obviously particularly applies to lorries, trucks, commercial vehicles. Now, this is the first time that foreign drivers have come together to fight back in this way. And you can see why. Dutch drivers claimed that they weren't made aware of the rules regarding ULEZ and LEZ clearly enough, and they now face staggering fines, with some businesses already having been driven to bankruptcy and drivers in tears of despair as they were hit with a flood of fines. I mean, we are talking about individuals receiving fines totaling nearly €400,000 in one go. Can you imagine? The legal argument hinges on the claim that TfL has been unlawfully issuing fines overseas and using an inaccurate exchange rate before these fines, I mean, that wouldn't be the first time that sort of thing has happened, right? The heart-wrenching stories of the impact and the sheer scale of the fines that these drivers have incurred have pushed them to basically seek justice in the English courts, not aiming to not just overturn their fines, but also to get a full refund, not only of the fines, not only of the eye-watering fines, but also the cost that they've incurred. And that could go into the millions. Now, TfL's response, they're considering their next move. It'll be interesting to see how this one plays out. There's also a load of reports coming in across the media, and I've also been getting these reports in my inbox too, and DMs and stuff like that, of drivers that have been incorrectly fined, or they've been fined for the wrong car, or their car details have not been correctly updated despite frequent requests. Many motorists are finding themselves unnecessarily entangled in a bureaucratic maze there where they're unable to rectify their details and therefore unable to escape unjust penalties that are being imposed on them. So all of that is happening. There's lots and lots of reports. I mean, TfL really needs to get their everything in order and sort this out. And amidst all this turmoil, of course, there's further reports coming out over the controversy regarding the enforcement behind ULEZ, particularly the ULEZ mobile vans. The mayor's office seems to have hired private contractors, private security to look after these vans. They seem to be unmarked. They're wearing balaclavas. They're intimidating people that are peacefully protesting against these vans, and it's raising tensions. And the stuff that's happened, I've actually covered a first-hand report of how things got quite serious in one particular altercation, and that's covered in the previous video. So this is not good, because unfortunately all of this is just going to make things worse. Finally, I want to move on to this one. This is a weird one. So Sadiq Khan is proposing to redirect 4x4s and other non-compliant vehicles from London that were meant to be scrapped over to Ukraine. Yeah, these are vehicles, like I said, that were likely to be killed off by the scrappage scheme. But hold on, I'm a little bit confused, because don't you have to actually physically scrap the vehicle before claiming on the scrappage scheme? I mean, that's my understanding. Well, I mean, if your car is scrapped and it's in pieces, or it's been turned into a little box of metal, then that's not going to be much use in Ukraine, is it? I'll come back to that. I think they're looking into that. But this whole thing, I'm really in two minds about this, because on the one hand, the initiative does offer a second life to vehicles that would otherwise have been crushed. And that aligns with my own view that the best thing for the environment is to extend the life of an existing vehicle for as long as possible and get the best or the most possible use out of it before finally scrapping it. And that, I believe, is the best use of those resources. However, it raises an eyebrow or two, doesn't it? Because when you think about the fact that these vehicles were deemed too polluting for London streets, but they are suddenly suitable for a war zone, which, of course, let's be honest, is putting out a ton of toxic and carbon emissions right now. That's an inevitable outcome of the tragedy of war, isn't it? Now, what does this say about our environmental commitments versus our humanitarian ones? And doesn't this actually skew the argument in our favor regarding what we've been saying about ULEZ, where, you know, the fact is that, you know, it's good to reduce toxic air, although I've shown that there's going to be very little impact of the ULEZ expansion. But at the same time, how do you tally that or compromise that with the genuine hardship that you're going to impose upon people that are struggling to replace their cars and simply cannot afford to, particularly now? It's a complex trade-off between reducing emissions at home. So this particular thing, I mean, in terms of the Ukraine situation, I would say it's a complex trade-off between reducing emissions at home and providing, you know, much needed support abroad. I mean, obviously vehicles are always useful, and you can imagine the number of vehicles that have probably already been wiped out in this war. Honestly, part of me thinks it's probably a good idea, but the justification isn't valid when judged against the apparent logic of ULEZ, if you see what I mean. Now, the Mayor and the former Defence Secretary Ben Wallace are advocating for a change in the scrappage rules to be able to send these vehicles to Ukraine. So that addresses my earlier concern about, well, how would you do that if the vehicle's already scrapped? So I think they have to tweak the law a little bit to do that. I'd love to get your opinion on this one. Where should the line be drawn between environmental policy and humanitarian aid? Is it right to send vehicles deemed too dirty for London to a country in crisis? I look forward to hearing your comments, and of course, I'll see you all in the next video.
Brown car guy.
Hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, please hit the like button and share this video as well if you can. And while you're at it, check out these guys who also sponsor my content. I am deeply grateful to them because it helps me to buy new equipment, put fuel in the cars, and yes, buy a cup of coffee. You can do the same. Just go here or right here on YouTube. Just hit these three little dots down here and click on thanks. Make sure you're signed in first. My content is free, but this is how you can help me keep it that way. I may even send you a gift. Oh, by the way, watch this next.